Hey everybody, welcome to the Dearies Book Series. I'm Christina K-R-S-T-I-N-A. This is where we read books, talk about books, series books. I'm a series person. I like to read the character progression from book to book to book. Don't forget Flashback Mondays, although I'm decorating for Christmas this week, so it may be a little tricky to do Flashback Monday next Monday, because there will be a tree here, but we'll see how it goes, because I won't be able to get to my books with all the wires. So, and don't forget Star Trek Fridays. Again, I'm a series person, and it's a long-running series. I like to, even though each episode solves something, but the relationships and characters grow throughout the series, and that's what I'm doing. And I've stated before, I don't know if you've seen my previous videos, but I am doing Janet Evanovich this month. She's one of my comfort authors. My daughter and my mother had died during this time period, and it's hard to get through it. So I go to my comfort books. Some people have music or whatever they do. I have comfort books. And Janet Evanovich, Stephanie Plum is one of them. And we've done one for the money. We've done two for the dough. We've done 3 to get deadly. We've got 4 to score. So now we're doing High Five. And this is a good one. We're getting some new characters. New recurring characters. And I want you to know that I cannot read these books without thinking about Dunkin' Donuts, Krispy Kreme, or Cluck in the Bucket. I cannot drive through town and see Dunkin' Donuts or Krispy Kreme and not think of Janet. I associate them together. They are the one and the same. I can't do one without the other. And I usually end up eating lots of donuts when I'm doing these books. Stephanie's coworker is Lula. She's slowly becoming more prominent as things goes on. Grandma Mazur is your comedy relief. Joe Morelli is her on-again, off-again boyfriend. Ranger is Special Forces. He does security, and he's an on-again, off-again boyfriend. And I want to point out that Ranger will never get messed up. Whenever they go on any errand, there's a couple where they get food thrown out. There's one where they get slimed and paintballed. Ranger comes out completely clean. Stephanie comes out a mess. Connie Rizzoli is the office manager. Vinny is the owner of the bail bonds business. His wife is Lucille. Her father is Harry the Hammer. We've got Stephanie's mom, Elle, and her father, Frank. And we've got her best friend, Mary Lou Molnar. And we've got Big Blue, and happen to note that Big Blue does not get hurt. Big Blue does not get hurt or dented or anything. Never worry about Big Blue. And we don't see much of Dickie Orr in this, her former husband. We do see lots of Rex. We hear a lot about Joyce Barnhart, the lady that... what are you doing over there? What are you doing? Come here, little girl. Joyce Barnhart, the lady that was doing her husband on the dining room table and caused her to get a divorce. She hates Joyce Barnhart. So she'll show up every once in a while. And we're also learning a little bit more about Valerie, Stephanie's sister, who will show up and play a prominent part in some of the future books. So we're going to get to this one now, High Five. And Stephanie starts the book off needing money. Her rent is due, this is due, that's due. She needs money. Her car blew up. She has no car. She's driving around in Big Blue. So Connie tells her there are no FTAs, but they do have one that's really, really small, Randy Briggs. Randy Briggs is a midget and or a little person and or whatever you want to call him. And I always picture him, he was on Charmed. He played an elf at one point. He's been on several different series. Bald guy, glasses, beard. You'll know who I'm talking about if we ever see him again. That's how I picture Randy Briggs. So Stephanie goes to Randy Briggs' apartment and he slams the door in her face and they leave. So then she gets a page from her mother. She goes to her parents' house and apparently her Uncle Fred has disappeared and the family wants Stephanie to look for him. So she goes out. He went out Friday and never returned, and it is now Monday. His car is found in the Grand Union parking lot. Grand Union is the supermarket, and they want Stephanie to find him. So she goes over to her aunt Fred and wife to talk to his wife Aunt Mabel about Fred's disappearance. I also want to point out that every time I do a video, that clock goes off. It doesn't tell time. It just goes off whenever I do videos. So anyways, they find his car in the Grand Union supermarket parking lot, and they want Stephanie to find him. She goes to talk to Aunt Mabel. Aunt Mabel tells her Fred was upset that the garbage truck skipped their house. And so Fred has a list of errands to do on Friday. He's going to the cleaners, he's going to the bank, he's going to the supermarket, and he's going to the garbage collection agency. So, but he never, according to the garbage collection agency, he never made it to them. Hint, they may be lying. So then this guy shows up and says that Fred owed him dollars and he skipped out of town, but that's not the truth, but the guy hangs around. Mabel then tells us she found photos in Fred's desk, a picture of a black trash bag, and in the middle was a picture of a severed hand. Other pictures were of body parts. Then she goes through his desk and finds the garbage cancel check. Then she goes back to her parents and calls her friend Eddie Gazzara, the cop. He gives her the info that the timeline for her uncle's missing. Then she calls Joe. Then her grandmother says Fred had a honey, Loretta Lewinsky, so she goes and checks out Loretta. Then later Stephanie meets up with Joe and she shows Joe the pictures. Then she goes to the office to see if there's any new FTAs and tell them about her uncle. Ranger is there and she asks Ranger for employment. So I don't know why I wrote when they're talking to the grandmother about the uncle's possible relationships. The grandmother says there are two types of secrets. One kind is where nobody knows the secret, and the other kind is where everybody knows the secret but pretends not to know the secret. This is the second kind of secret, where everybody knows but doesn't tell. So then she goes back to Randy Briggs' apartment. He knows she's there, and he's trying to avoid her. She goes home, falls asleep. Ranger comes over and brings a salad. Ranger is a health food nut. He only eats healthy food. Stephanie eats real food and donuts and Cluck in the Bucket and candy bars, and Ranger eats salad and tofu and yogurt and that kind of stuff. He talks to her about employment. He says he has a renovation job, like interior decorating. She says he tells her he'll be picking her up at 5 a.m. She takes out her copies of Uncle Fred's photos, goes to look, but finds nothing. Ranger picks up and has 3 men with him. He's been hired by a landlord to help him remove people from apartment 3C. Apparently, they're not paying rent, and they are heroin and drug addicts shooting up, and they're harassing other people in the building. They need to be removed. So we meet 3 people who work with Ranger: Lester Santos, Bobby Brown, and Tank. Tank is the guy you gotta watch. He will be back, and he will be back often, and he will become a beloved character. Whatever you want to call a huge guy that's built like a tank. They clean the apartment, and one of the guys accidentally gets thrown out. One of the squatters gets thrown out a window. That will come into play later. Um, then Mabel calls and says a guy, she doesn't know what his name is, came to her to ask about Fred, and she told the guy about Stephanie. And that turns out to be Bunchy. We'll get to him later. Then her grandmother calls and says she heard from a friend that Fred was currently seeing Winnie Black. So Stephanie goes to see her. She saw Fred Friday. They had coffee cake. Then she goes to talk to Winnie's hubby at the dog park. He didn't know anything. Then she goes and talks to Randy's kids. They didn't know anything. Then she has a dinner date with Morelli at Pino's. And that's a very interesting conversation. I will confess, this Janet Evanovich books, like the J.D. Robb books, I cannot talk about without reading excerpts because I enjoy these books so much. I do. So I just want to point that out because I've done it for the past 4 books. This is the 5th book. I will do it for the next 25 other books in this series. I will always do it because I enjoy these books. They talk about the pictures, and then Morelli gave his order and tipped back in his chair. How friendly are you feeling towards me? What'd you have in mind? A date. I thought this was a date. They're at the restaurant. They're at an Italian restaurant. No, this is dinner, so I can ask you about a date. I sipped at my beer. Maybe some date. Must be some date. It's a wedding. I sat up straighter in my chair. It isn't my wedding, is it? Not unless there's something going on in your life that I don't know about. I blew out a sigh of relief. Wow, for a minute there I was worried. Morelli looked annoyed. You mean if I asked you to marry me, that's the reaction I'd get? Well, yeah. I thought you wanted to get married. I thought that was why we stopped sleeping together, because you didn't want sex without marriage. I leaned forward on the table and cocked a single eyebrow at him. Do you want to get married? No, I don't want to get married. We've been all through this. Then my reaction doesn't matter, does it? Jesus, Morelli said. I need another beer. So what's with the wedding? My cousin Julie's getting married on Saturday and I need a date. You're giving me 4 days' notice to go to a wedding? I can't be ready for a wedding in 4 days. I need a new dress. I need new shoes. I need a beauty parlor appointment. How am I going to do all this with 4 days' notice? Oh, F it. We won't go. I guess I could do without the beauty parlor, but I definitely need new shoes. Heels, Morelli said, high and spiky. Then he also tells her that Benito Ramirez has been paroled on. He had a really good lawyer, and he was the guy that was killing people in the previous book. And why this guy was released, don't know. So then, the date continues, and I wrote it down. Fine, let Ranger get someone else. Trust me, you don't want to be looking for a parking place on Sloan in the middle of the night. I won't have to look for a parking place. Tank's picking me up. You're working with a guy named Tank? He's big. Jesus, Morelli said. I had to fall in love with a woman who works with a guy named Tank. You love me? Of course I love you. I just don't want to marry you. So when Stephanie returns to her apartment, a man named Bunchy is waiting for her. The man who had been to her Aunt Mabel's. He wants to talk about Fred. He said Fred owes him money. Said Fred played the ponies, which is a lie. Tank picks Stephanie up and they go to the building to do security. Someone shoots at them. One of the tenants from earlier in the day comes out with explosives on him. The guy that went out the window. And Tank gets hit. He's got a vest on, but he gets hit, but it's strong enough to push him backwards. He hits his head and gets unconscious. And Stephanie faints. And the lady put all her bullets in the guy with the explosives, and the place goes up. So that's just fun. When they return to her apartment, Bunchy is there. He wants to know the status of her search for Fred. Then Ranger wants to know if she will do security again with Tank. Stephanie says no, and he gives her gun back. He had found it in the building where the explosion took place. Bunchy follows her to the office. Lula goes, talks to Bunchy so Stephanie can get away so Bunchy doesn't follow her. And Lula does this by kissing Bunchy. She goes to see Aunt Mabel, no new news. Then she goes to the supermarket, then the bank. Leon, one of the tellers, said Fred was there on Friday. They talked to the bank manager, and he said Frank had questions, but he wanted to ask about a loan. And the dry cleaner had no news. She goes to the garbage collection agency and talks with the Martha Dieter, the receptionist, and the manager, Larry Limsky. And he said he blames the fact that Fred's garbage wasn't picked up on a computer issue. And he's lying, but we don't get that till later. Then she returns to her office, and her and Lula go back after Briggs. They chase him around the apartment, and they end up they leave, they give up. She then tells Lula about Benito Ramirez being released. She goes to her parents for pot roast. The newspaper reports the next day that the receptionist she served the garbage company is deceased. Then she goes, talks to Mabel, talk about routine, they're talking about the routine when the garbage truck comes by and does not pick up the trash. So Stephanie takes all the trash and she takes it to the garbage company and puts it on their front lawn. Then she goes home to change, tells Bunchy about the chauffeur job. She goes for this, Ranger had hired her to do a chauffeur job. The guy runs away. She calls Lula to pick her up. They go buy a little black dress and spiky shoes for the wedding. And then she cops out and doesn't wear the stuff to the wedding. Ranger talks about Ramirez, and Bunchy shows up. Benito shows up and then scares the crap out of her. They go see Briggs. He calls her a loser. They fight. They roll around. Costanza comes in. Her cop friend saves the day. And because Briggs's door was destroyed, once he does the bonding thing and gets out again, he goes to stay at Steffi's apartment, and he will be not often, but we will see him again in the books. I would like to mention, this first time is okay, but the second time is not. Grandma Mazur hates a closed casket. She goes to funerals for her entertainment. That's what they do in the Berg. They go to the viewings for entertainment, to meet other people, to gossip. They go to the funeral viewings like they go to the bakery, like they go to the deli, like they go play bingo. They go for the gossip. And Grandma Mazur hates a closed casket. And the first time they go to the funeral, everything works out fine. But then she returns to her apartment, and Bunchy says he looks at the pictures. Her Uncle Fred had taken pictures of a body in a dumpster in trash bags, and he could see the hand and they could see other body parts. And Bunchy gives us a clue that, I should see her in case she's dead, that he sees one of the flyers, and his kid wanted this particular game, and he tells her the flyer was from Kmart. I miss Kmart. Don't you miss Kmart? Oh, I miss Kmart. So then, when they returned, someone took the wheels off Lula's car. So, and her Aunt Mabel buys a new car. It seems that Aunt Mabel is quite pleased that Uncle Fred is not coming back. She's planning cruises, she's buying new cars, she's buying new furniture. She's having a really good time. Apparently Fred was a real cheapskate. And she's not too happy about this. But I wanted to read this little part. Again, I like reading. Uh, it's Stephanie. I'm sorry to be calling so late. He took a slow breath. No problem. Last time you called me late at night, you were naked and chained to your shower curtain rod. I hope this isn't going to be disappointing. In the first book is when a ranger does this. That had happened when we first started working together, and I barely knew him. He'd broken into my apartment and released me with clinical efficiency. I suspected he acted differently now. The thought of him coming upon me naked and chained now gave me a hot flash. And I would like to point out that we will never figure out or will never be told how Ranger gets into her apartment each and every time he wants to. He comes and goes whenever he wants. No matter what kind of security she puts on that door, Ranger always gets in. Sorry, you've only get one call like that in a lifetime. This call's about exercise. I could use some. Now? No, in the morning. I want to go running and I'm looking for a partner. You're not looking for a partner, Ranger said. You're looking for an enforcer. You hate to run. You must be worried about getting into that black dress. What did you eat just now? Piece of cake? Candy bar? Everything, I said. I just ate everything. You need some self-control, babe. Boy, was that the truth. Are you going to run with me or what? Only if you're serious about getting into shape. I am. You're a terrible liar, Ranger says, but since I don't want to have some fat chick working for me, I'll be there at 6. I'm not a chick, I yelled, but he'd already hung up. I'm sorry. So Stephanie and Joe go to the wedding, and we see Grandma Bella again, and she talks about bambinos. And while they're at the wedding, Ranger had asked Stephanie to do a favor, ask one. He was after an FTA, a high FTA, and he asked Stephanie to ask the neighborhood to let her know when the FTA showed up. Joe had to step out for a minute to help somebody with something, and she couldn't get a hold of Ranger, so she goes after the FTA herself, and the FTA throws garbage at her, and she ends up rolling around the neighborhood, and they're fighting back and forth and stuff like that. And the neighbor throws water on them to break up the fight, and when they break up the fight, she looks up, and the whole neighborhood is surrounding them, including Ranger and Morelli, who've got biggest smiles on their faces. And she's like, what? I caught him, didn't I? So, Randy Briggs goes with Stephanie to dinner. Stephanie, Briggs, and Grandma go to the Larry Lipinski funeral. He's the guy from the garbage company. The manager, he got killed the next day. So, Grandma, like I said, has to see the dead body. So she sets off the fire alarm, and everybody knows that Stephanie set the last funeral home on fire, so they all run out because she's there. And Grandma uses the time to lift up the coffin lid and take pictures of the deceased. So it's hysterical. Ranger talks to Stephanie, and this is a trip. Where's Vinny? At the lockup writing bail and a shoplifter. I left the office and stood outside staring at the Buick. I hate you, I said. I heard someone laughing softly behind me and turned to find Ranger. You always talk to your car like that? Think you need a life, babe. I've got a life. What I need is a new car. He stared at me for a couple beats, and I was afraid to speculate on what he was thinking. His brown eyes were assessing, and his expression was mildly amused. What would you be willing to do for a new car? What did you have in mind? And again the soft laugh. Would it still have to be morally correct? What kind of car are we talking about? Powerful, sexy. I had a feeling those words might be included in the job description too. A light rain had started to fall. He pulled my jacket hood up and tucked my hair in. His fingers traced a line at my temple, our eyes met, and for a terrifying moment I thought he might kiss me. The moment passed and Ranger pulled back. Let me know what you decide, he said. Decide? He smiled. About the car. Okie dokie. Ah! I climbed into the Buick and roared off into the mist. I stopped for a light and thunked my head on the steering wheel while I waited for the green. Stupid, 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 I thought while I hunkered. Why had I said okie dokie? What a dopey thing to say. Don't you love Stephanie? So then, um, I can help with the tracking problem, Ranger said, handing me a set of keys. What's this? This is temptation, Ranger said, leaning against a new midnight black Porsche Boxster. Could you be more specific about the temptation? Like what kind of temptation were you thinking about? Temptation to broaden your horizons. I had a lot of unease over Ranger's definition of broadening horizons. I suspected his horizons were a teensy bit closer to hell than I wanted to travel. For starters, there was the car and the slight possibility that it wasn't entirely legitimate. Where do you get these cars? I asked him. You seem to have a never ending supply of new expensive black cars. I have a source. This Porsche isn't stolen, isn't? Do you care? Of course I care. Then it isn't stolen, Ranger said. I shook my head. It's a really cool car, and I appreciate your offer, but I can't afford a car like this. You don't know the price yet, Ranger said. Is it more than $5? The car isn't for sale. It's a company car. You get the car if you continue to work for me. You're ruining my image in that Buick. Everyone who works with me drives black. Well, hell, I said, I wouldn't want to ruin your image. Ranger just kept looking at me. Is this charity? I asked him. Guess again. I'm not selling my soul, am I? I'm not in the soul buying business, Ranger said. The car's an investment, part of the working relationship. So what do I have to do in this working relationship? Ranger uncrossed his arms and pushed off the car. Jobs come up. Don't accept any that make you uncomfortable. You aren't doing this just to amuse yourself, are you? To see what I'd be willing to do for an expensive car? That would be somewhere in the middle of the list, Ranger said. He looked at his watch. I have a meeting. Drive the car. Think it over. He is a temptation, isn't he? Um, so then Ranger wants. Oh, so then Stephanie, the previous evening, had gone out for candy bars and come back, and she drove past Morelli's house, and she saw him getting in a car with Terry Gilman. Apparently, they were doing some cop stuff, but she didn't know that, and she got all bent out of shape. So she calls Mary Lou, her friend, to go over and stake out Morelli's house. And Morelli goes out for ice cream, comes back, and then he walks around the house and surprises Stephanie and Mary Lou about their stakeout. And she says she knows about Terry Gilman. Uh, so then Ranger has a job for her, and she's supposed to keep a guy uh, busy, distracted while Ranger repossesses his car. Apparently, he owes money on it, and the regular repossessor hasn't been able to get to the car. And while Stephanie is in the bar distracting the gentleman, Benito shows up. So then she confronts Joe about Terry. And this little tidbit shows up that I like the romance. I like the character progression, and these are very good stories. You have to admit. Um, uh, so they talk about Ramirez, and she says that she saw him at the bar. I could see emotion bubbling inside Morelli's frustration mostly and some anger. I don't suppose you'd consider moving back in with me, he asked, just until Ramirez is found. Be a little crowded with Terry there too. Don't suppose I would, I said. How about if I marry you? Now you want to marry me. What happens after they catch Ramirez? We get a divorce? There's no divorce in my family. Grandma Bella wouldn't hear of it. You have to die to get out of a marriage in my family. Gosh, that's cheery. Gotta love it. Um, so in the meantime, Stephanie's gotten a copy of her Uncle Fred's check. She's also gotten a copy of the cable check, and they discovered that the checks were not cashed by the national company's banking. They went into a smaller account, and it seems someone has been skimming. So, why did I mark this page? I just want you to see. Um, oh, they talk with Lula about the car, so we can just skip that. Um, okay, this is the scene. Uh, they're at the garbage truck company, and they were questioning the people on their way out. Uh, I rolled to a stop at the open gate, looked left, and saw the first garbage truck of the day rumble home. It was a colossus of a truck, a green and white behemoth that shook the earth as if it thundered closer. It bulked, preceded by the stench of rotting everything, its arrival heralded by descending seagulls. The truck swung wide to enter the lot, and Lula jumped in her seat. Holy cats, that guy don't see us. He's taking his turn like he owns the road. I went into reverse, but it was too late. The truck sideswiped the Porsche, shearing fiberglass off half the car. I leaned on the horn, and the truck driver stopped and looked down at us in amazement. Lula jumped out of the car in full rant, and I followed after her, climbing over the seat because my side was smashed into the monster garbage truck. Geez, lady, the driver said, I don't know what happened. I didn't see you until you started blowing your horn. That don't cut it, Lula yelled. This here's a Porsche. You know what she had to do to get this Porsche? Well, actually, she hasn't done anything. But I think if she gets lucky, she's gonna have to do plenty. This company better be insured. Lula turned to me. You need to exchange insurance information. That's always the first thing you do. You got your card? I don't know. I guess all that stuff is in the glove compartment, I said. I'll get it. Lula told me. I don't believe this happened to a Porsche. People should be more careful when they see a Porsche on the road. She leaned into the car, rooted around in the glove compartment, and was back in a heartbeat. This looks like it, she said, handing the card over to me. And here's your purse. You might need your license. Maybe we should get the guy in the office, the driver said. He fills out the forms for this kind of thing. I thought that was a good idea, and while we were at, how about if I just slip away unnoticed and get a one-way ticket to Rio? I didn't want to have to explain this to Ranger. Um, I would have rolled my eyes, but I thought I would save my energy in case Lula suddenly got paralyzed from the half-mile-per-hour impact she just sustained. We all went into the building and had just gotten through the door when there was a loud explosion. We stopped in our tracks and looked at each other. There was a moment of stunned immobility, and we all scrambled to see what had happened. We burst out the door and faltered when a second explosion went off and the flames shot from the Porsche and licked along the undercarriage of the garbage truck. Oh shit, the driver said, take cover. I got a full tank of gas. And the truck, the car, and everything goes vroom. And drum roll, please. Break out the drum roll, because you didn't see this one coming. Dyslexia. She's with Ranger. Here's something else to worry about, he said, and he kissed me, his hand at the nape of my neck and his mouth on mine, soft at first, then serious and demanding. He drew me closer and kissed me again, and desire washed over me, hot and liquid and scary. Oh boy, I whispered. Yeah, he said, think about it. Well, I think that it's a bad idea. Of course it's a bad idea, Ranger said. If it was a good idea, I'd have been in your bed a long time ago. He took a note card from his jacket pocket. I have a job for you tomorrow. So, what's going on with the checks? What's going on with the cable company? What's going on with the garbage company? What happens with Ramirez? What happens with Stephanie? Who does she choose? All right, spoiler alert, she does. It's 30 books she still hasn't chosen, and we don't see a way out of this. But you've got to enjoy these books. They're so much fun. They're so good. She tells an interesting story while being entertaining, and they are entertaining. So to find out what happened to Uncle Fred, who was doing what, who was skimming, who was stealing, who was dead, who she's staying with, because at the very end of the book, it ends on a cliffhanger, and she's in her black slinky dress. She's got her shoes on. She's got Dolce Vista on her wrist. She picks up the phone and says, "I have this dress. I'd like your opinion." Stuff goes on, and he goes, the person who she called, and it's not revealed who she calls at the end of this book. He opens the door, nice dress, take it off. So please hit the like and subscribe. Let me know I'm doing a good job. I hope you come by as we continue our Stephanie Plum rampage with Hot 6, 7 Up, Hard 8 to the 9s, Big 10, 11 on top, 12 sharp. I know these books. 1 for the money, 2 for the dough, 3 to Gadeli, 4 score, high 5, hot 6. I know them all. So you gonna come say goodbye? Come here. Remember, high 5. You gonna say bye? Come here. Come here. One more step. There you go. She's a girl. She's my baby. Come on. You gonna say bye? Nope. She's gonna crawl all over the floor here and look cute out of camera range. Always. Don't forget Friday, Star Trek. Don't forget to follow. We're gonna do 30 days of Stephanie. I'm reading 2 a day. This is taking a lot. I still got some JPs to do too. So have a good one.